The grand conclave chamber of the Sith Imperium pulsed with a cold, blue light, reflecting off the polished obsidian floor and the towering, crystalline structures that served as seats for the ruling council. A low hum vibrated through the air, a constant reminder of the immense power that resided within these walls, power that was now threatened by the inexplicable rise of humanity. The Supreme Arbiter, his bioluminescent patterns shifting with agitation, addressed the assembly. His voice, amplified by the chamber's acoustics, echoed with concern. For cycles, we have observed them. Their technology is crude, their societal structure chaotic, their history a tapestry of violence and self-destruction. And yet they advance at an unprecedented rate. They defy all logical projections. What are we to make of this species, these humans? A wave of murmurs rippled through the conclave. Councillor Xylos, a veteran of countless campaigns, his carapace scarred and battle-worn, spoke with grim certainty. They are a threat, Arbiter, a virus spreading through the galaxy. Their expansion knows no bounds. Their aggression is evident in every star system they touch. We must contain them before they consume us all. Xylos's words resonated with many in the chamber. The Sith Imperium, a civilization spanning millennia built on logic, order, and calculated expansion, viewed the unpredictable nature of humanity as a dangerous anomaly. Their rapid technological advancements, their seemingly limitless capacity for innovation, and their unwavering determination to explore the unknown were unsettling, to say the least. But not all shared Xylos's aggressive stance. Councillor Lyra, a renowned scholar and diplomat, argued for a more cautious approach. We do not understand them, Xylos. We have observed only the surface. To wage war based on incomplete data would be a grave error. Perhaps there is more to humanity than meets the eye. Lyra's words were met with skepticism. The humans' history was indeed riddled with conflict, and their societal structures seemed haphazard and disorganized from the outside. Their constant drive for exploration often led them into territories claimed by other races, causing friction and escalating tensions. Still, Lyra believed that a deeper understanding was necessary before resorting to open warfare. The Supreme Arbiter, his gaze sweeping across the chamber, acknowledged the conflicting viewpoints. The situation is delicate. War is a costly endeavor, one that should not be entered into lightly, but inaction is equally dangerous. We must gather more information. We must understand their motives, their capabilities, their true nature. Only then can we decide the fate of humanity. He paused, his bioluminescent patterns dimming slightly. General Vorlag, you have studied humanity extensively. You have analyzed their strategies, their technologies, their psychology. What is your assessment? A hush fell over the conclave as General Vorlag, the supreme commander of the Sith military, rose to address the assembly. Vorlag was a figure of immense respect and authority, a strategist whose brilliance had secured countless victories for the Imperium. His every word carried weight. He stood tall, his massive frame radiating an aura of power and experience. His gaze, sharp and unwavering, pierced through the assembled councillors. Honored Arbiter, esteemed councillors, he began, his voice deep and resonant. I have dedicated much time to understand the humans. What I have discovered is unsettling. Vorlag paused, allowing his words to sink in. The silence in the chamber deepened, broken only by the low hum of the energy conduits. The councillors leaned forward, their attention focused entirely on the general. They knew Vorlag was not prone to hyperbole. His statements were always carefully considered, based on meticulous analysis and battlefield experience. If Vorlag found humanity unsettling, then the situation was indeed dire. Their technology, Vorlag continued, while not as refined as ours, possesses a unique adaptability. They are masters of improvisation, able to modify and improve their designs with remarkable speed. But it is not their technology that concerns me most. He paused again, his gaze narrowing. It is their resilience, their capacity to endure hardship, to overcome seemingly insurmountable obstacles. They suffer losses that would cripple other species, yet they continue to fight, to explore, to expand. They possess a tenacity that is both admirable and terrifying. Vorlag gestured to a large holographic display, which flickered to life, showing images of human soldiers in combat, their faces grim but determined, their bodies battered but unbowed. Observe them. They are outnumbered, outgunned, and yet they persist. They fight for their beliefs, for their families, for their very survival. They are driven by a force that we, in our ordered and logical society, struggle to comprehend. Councillor Xylos scoffed. Sentimentality, a weakness, we can exploit that. Vorlag turned to face Xylos, his expression hardening. Do not underestimate them, counselor. Their sentimentality is not a weakness. It is a source of strength. It binds them together, gives them a common purpose. They fight for each other. They protect each other. They are willing to sacrifice themselves for each other. This is a force more powerful than any weapon. He turned back to the arbiter. We must tread carefully. We must not provoke them. We must seek to understand them, to find common ground. War with humanity would be unlike any war we have ever fought. It would be a war of attrition, a war of ideologies, a war that could consume us both. The Supreme Arbiter nodded slowly, his bioluminescent patterns shifting thoughtfully. Your words are sobering, General. They paint a complex picture of humanity, a picture that demands further investigation. He turned to Counselor Lyra. Counselor, I task you with establishing communication with the humans, seek to understand their intentions, determine their long-term goals, find out what they truly want, but do so with caution. Do not reveal too much about us. Do not give them any reason to perceive us as a threat. Lyra bowed her head in acknowledgement. I will do as you command, Arbiter. As Lyra began the delicate process of establishing contact with the humans, Vorlag continued his analysis, poring over every piece of information he could find, searching for clues to unlock the mystery of humanity. He studied their history, their art, their philosophy, their religions. He listened to their music, watched their films, read their books. He tried to immerse himself in their culture, to see the world through their eyes. And the more he learned, the more he realized how little he truly understood. The humans were a paradox, a contradiction. They were capable of great cruelty and great compassion, of great destruction and great creation. They were driven by both reason and emotion, by both self-interest and altruism. They were, in short, unpredictable. Weeks turned into months, and Lyra's efforts slowly began to bear fruit. After numerous failed attempts, she finally managed to establish a stable communication channel with a human vessel on the fringes of Zith-claimed space. The initial exchanges were tentative, filled with suspicion and guarded language. But as the two sides began to understand each other's protocols and intentions, a fragile trust began to develop. Lyra learned that the human vessel was an exploratory ship, charting new territories and searching for resources. Its crew was composed of scientists, engineers, and diplomats, all eager to learn about the universe and its inhabitants. They expressed a genuine curiosity about the Zith Imperium and a desire for peaceful cooperation. Lyra relayed this information to the conclave, but her words were met with skepticism. Many counselors still viewed humanity with suspicion, believing that their peaceful overtures were merely a facade, a cunning ploy to gain an advantage. Xylos, in particular, remained adamant that war was inevitable. They are playing us, Arbiter, he argued. They are lulling us into a false sense of security so that they can strike when we least expect it. We must not fall for their tricks. We must prepare for war. The Supreme Arbiter, however, remained undecided. He saw the potential for both peace and conflict in humanity. He knew that the future of the Imperium, and perhaps the entire galaxy, hung in the balance. As the debate raged on, General Vorlag continued his own investigation. He focused on a particular aspect of human history that had always intrigued him, their mythology. He studied their ancient stories, their legends, their myths. He learned about their gods and goddesses, their heroes and villains, their tales of creation and destruction. And as he delved deeper into human mythology, he began to see a pattern, a common thread that ran through all their stories. A thread of hope, of resilience, of the triumph of good over evil. He began to realize that human mythology was not just a collection of fanciful tales, but a reflection of their deepest beliefs and values. One myth in particular captured Vorlag's attention, the story of a great flood that had once threatened to destroy all of humanity. In the story, a single hero, warned by the gods, built a massive ark and gathered all the animals of the world inside. When the flood came, the ark floated on the rising waters, protecting its precious cargo from destruction. After the flood subsided, the hero released the animals, and humanity was able to rebuild its civilization. Vorlag saw in this story a metaphor for humanity's own capacity for survival. He realized that even in the face of overwhelming odds, the humans possessed the ability to adapt, to endure, and to overcome any challenge. He brought this realization to the Arbiter, explaining his interpretation of the human mythos. The Arbiter listened intently, and for the first time Vorlag saw a flicker of hope in the Arbiter's eyes. Perhaps, he thought, there was a chance for peace after all. However, before the Zith could make a final decision, a new and disturbing piece of information came to light. A Zith scout ship, exploring a remote region of space, discovered a massive, artificial structure of unknown origin. The structure was ancient, derelict, and emitting a strange energy signature. But what truly alarmed the Zith was the fact that the structure was located directly in the path of human expansion. The discovery sparked a new wave of fear and suspicion within the conclave. Some counselors believed that the structure was a weapon left behind by a long-dead civilization, and that the humans were deliberately heading towards it, seeking to claim its power for themselves. Others believed that the structure was a trap, designed to lure unsuspecting civilizations to their doom. Xylos, as usual, advocated for immediate military action. "We must destroy the structure," he declared. "And we must destroy the humans before they reach it. We cannot afford to take any chances." But Vorlag disagreed. He believed that the structure was too important to destroy, that it might hold the key to unlocking new technologies or understanding ancient mysteries. He argued that the Zith should investigate the structure themselves before the humans arrived. The Supreme Arbiter, torn between the conflicting viewpoints, decided to send a joint Zith-human expedition to the structure. The expedition would be composed of scientists, engineers, and security personnel from both civilizations. Its mission would be to study the structure, to determine its origin and purpose, and to assess any potential threats. Vorlag was placed in command of the Zith contingent, while a human captain named Eva Rostova was placed in command of the human contingent. Rostova was a brilliant and experienced officer, known for her calm demeanor and her strategic thinking. Vorlag found himself immediately impressed by her professionalism and her intelligence. As the expedition ship approached the structure, a sense of awe and trepidation filled the bridge. The structure was immense, dwarfing even the largest Zith warships. It was composed of strange, alien materials, and its surface was covered in intricate patterns and symbols. The ship's sensors detected high levels of energy radiation emanating from the structure, making it difficult to approach. Rostova and Vorlag conferred, discussing the best way to proceed. They agreed to send a small team of scientists and engineers to the surface of the structure to collect data and assess the situation. The team would be equipped with protective suits and advanced scanning devices. As the team approached the structure, they began to experience strange phenomena. Their instruments went haywire, their senses became distorted, and they began to hear faint, ethereal voices. They pressed on, determined to complete their mission. They reached the surface of the structure and began to collect samples and scan the environment. As they worked, they discovered a hidden chamber deep within the structure. The chamber was filled with glowing crystals and strange artifacts. In the center of the chamber, they found a massive, pulsating orb of energy. As they approached the orb, they felt a powerful surge of energy coursing through their bodies. Suddenly, the orb erupted with a blinding flash of light. The team members were thrown back against the walls of the chamber. When they regained their senses, they realized that something had changed. They could hear the voices more clearly now, and they could understand what they were saying. The voices were speaking in a language that they had never heard before, but they could somehow understand it perfectly. The voices were telling them about the history of the structure, about its creators, and about its purpose. The structure was a repository of knowledge, a library of the universe. It was built by an ancient civilization that had long since vanished, leaving behind this legacy for future generations. The voices revealed that the creators of the structure had foreseen a great threat to the galaxy, a cosmic force that would seek to destroy all life. They had built the structure as a warning, a beacon of hope, a source of knowledge that could help civilizations defend themselves against this threat. The voices told the team members that they had been chosen to receive this knowledge, to become the guardians of the structure, to protect it from those who would seek to misuse it. The team members, overwhelmed by the experience, returned to the ship and relayed their findings to Rostova and Vorlag. The two captains listened in stunned silence. They realized that the structure was not a weapon or a trap, but a gift, a treasure trove of knowledge that could save the galaxy. But they also knew that this knowledge could be dangerous in the wrong hands. They decided to keep the discovery a secret, sharing it only with a select few trusted individuals. They knew that if the truth were to be revealed to the entire galaxy, it could spark a war, as different civilizations fought for control of the structure. They agreed to work together, Zith and humans, to protect the structure and to use its knowledge for the benefit of all. As they made this decision, Vorlag understood something profound. The true strength of humanity lay not in their technology, not in their resilience, but in their capacity for empathy, for compassion, for understanding. They were willing to risk everything for the sake of others, even for those who had once been their enemies. Vorlag, now enlightened to the true nature of humanity, returned to the grand conclave chamber of the Zith Imperium to deliver his report. The Supreme Arbiter, his bioluminescent patterns flickering with anticipation, awaited him. The counselors, still wary of humanity, looked on with suspicion. Vorlag stepped forward, his voice resonating with newfound conviction. "Honored Arbiter, esteemed counselors," he began, "I have seen the truth of mankind." He paused, allowing his words to sink in. "They are not the threat we believed them to be. They are not a virus spreading through the galaxy. They are something more." He proceeded to recount his experiences on the expedition, his discovery of the ancient structure, and the knowledge he had gained from the voices within. He explained the true purpose of the structure, its potential to save the galaxy, and the need for cooperation between Zith and humans. Counselor Xylos scoffed. "You have been deceived, General. They have manipulated you with their lies and their tricks. You have fallen prey to their sentimentality." Vorlag turned to face Xylos, his gaze unwavering. "I have not been deceived, Counselor. I have seen the truth with my own eyes. The humans are not perfect. They have their flaws, their weaknesses, but they also possess a capacity for greatness, a willingness to sacrifice, a desire to do what is right. These are qualities that we, as Zith, should admire and emulate." The Supreme Arbiter, his bioluminescent patterns glowing brightly, addressed the assembly. "General Vorlag has presented compelling evidence, evidence that challenges our preconceived notions about humanity, evidence that suggests a path towards peace and cooperation." He turned to Counselor Lyra. "Counselor, continue your efforts to build bridges with the humans, explore the possibility of a formal alliance, work towards a future where Zith and humans can coexist in harmony." Lyra bowed her head in acknowledgement. "I will do as you command, Arbiter." As the conclave chamber erupted in debate, General Vorlag approached the Supreme Arbiter. He lowered his voice, speaking in a hushed tone. "Arbiter, there is something else you must know, something that I have not yet revealed." The Arbiter turned his gaze towards Vorlag, his bioluminescent patterns shifting with curiosity. "What is it, General?" Vorlag hesitated for a moment, gathering his thoughts. He knew that what he was about to say would shock the Arbiter, would challenge everything he believed in. But he also knew that it was the truth, and that the Arbiter had a right to know. "The voices in the structure," Vorlag began, "they told me something else, something about the great threat to the galaxy." He paused, his voice trembling slightly. "They said that the threat is not external, it is not some cosmic force from beyond the stars, it is us." The Arbiter stared at Vorlag in disbelief. "What do you mean? Explain yourself." Vorlag took a deep breath and continued. "The voices said that the Zith Imperium, in its relentless pursuit of order and expansion, has become a threat to the very balance of the galaxy. Our rigid adherence to logic and control has stifled creativity, suppressed individuality, and led to the exploitation of countless other species. We have become so focused on our own survival that we have forgotten the importance of diversity, of compassion, of empathy." The Arbiter was stunned into silence. He had always believed that the Zith Imperium was a force for good in the galaxy, a beacon of civilization and order. He had never considered that they might be the very thing they were trying to protect against. "This cannot be true," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "We are the guardians of the galaxy. We have brought peace and stability to countless worlds." Vorlag shook his head. "We have brought order, Arbiter, but not necessarily peace. We have imposed our will on others, often without regard for their own desires or needs. We have become arrogant, complacent, and blind to our own flaws." He paused, his gaze locking with the Arbiter's. "The voices said that the only way to defeat the great threat is to change ourselves, to embrace diversity, to value compassion, to cultivate empathy, to learn from other species, to respect their cultures, to work together for the common good, to become, in essence, more like the humans." The Arbiter remained silent for a long moment, contemplating Vorlag's words. He knew that Vorlag was not prone to exaggeration or falsehood. If Vorlag believed that the Zith Imperium was the great threat, then there was a strong possibility that it was true. He looked around the conclave chamber at the faces of his fellow counselors. He saw the fear, the suspicion, the arrogance. He realized that Vorlag was right. The Zith Imperium had become too rigid, too inflexible, too unwilling to change. They had lost sight of their original purpose, their original ideals. He sighed, a deep, mournful sound that echoed through the chamber. "What must we do?" he asked, his voice filled with despair. Vorlag stepped closer to the Arbiter, placing a hand on his shoulder. "We must start by listening," he said. "We must listen to the humans. We must learn from their mistakes and from their successes. We must embrace their values, and we must work together to build a better future for the galaxy." The Arbiter nodded slowly, his bioluminescent patterns dimming slightly. "It will not be easy," he said. "There will be resistance. There will be those who cling to the old ways. There will be those who fear change." Vorlag smiled, a rare and genuine smile that lit up his face. "I know," he said, "but we are not alone. We have the humans on our side, and together we can overcome any challenge." He raised his voice, addressing the entire conclave. "Honored counselors," he announced, "I propose a new course for the Zith Imperium, a course of cooperation, of understanding, of empathy, a course that will lead us towards a brighter future, a future where Zith and humans can stand together, united against the great threat." His words were met with a mixture of shock, confusion, and hope. Some counselors remained skeptical, but others were intrigued. They saw the sincerity in Vorlag's eyes, the passion in his voice. They began to realize that perhaps, just perhaps, there was a better way. As the debate continued, Vorlag turned to Counselor Lyra. "Counselor," he said, "I have a special request for you. I want you to invite Captain Rostova to the conclave chamber. I want her to address the counselors, to share her perspective on humanity, and to help us understand how we can work together." Lyra nodded eagerly. "I will do it immediately, General." Within hours, Eva Rostova stood before the grand conclave of the Zith Imperium. She stood tall and resolute, her eyes scanning the alien faces before her. The tension in the chamber was palpable, the weight of millennia of tradition and prejudice pressing down on her. She began to speak, her voice clear and strong, echoing through the hall. "Honored Arbiter, esteemed counselors," she began, "I stand before you today not as a representative of humanity, but as a fellow explorer of the universe. I have seen the wonders of the galaxy, the beauty of its diverse cultures, and the potential for greatness that lies within each and every species." She paused, her gaze sweeping across the assembled counselors. "I have also seen the darkness, the conflict, the destruction that can arise from misunderstanding and fear. I have seen civilizations tear themselves apart, driven by greed, by hatred, by a thirst for power." She paused again, her voice softening slightly. "But I have also seen the light, the hope, the resilience that can emerge from the ashes of despair. I have seen species overcome seemingly insurmountable obstacles, driven by compassion, by empathy, by a desire to build a better future." She continued, her voice filled with emotion. "Humanity is not perfect. We have made mistakes. We have caused pain. We have struggled to overcome our own flaws, but we are learning. We are growing. We are striving to become better. And we believe that we can achieve that goal not by isolating ourselves from the rest of the galaxy, but by embracing diversity, by learning from other cultures, by working together for the common good." She paused, taking a deep breath. "We offer you our hand in friendship. We offer you our knowledge, our resources, our support. We ask only that you do the same. Let us put aside our differences, our fears, our prejudices. Let us work together to build a future where all species can thrive, where all cultures are respected, where peace and prosperity reign supreme." As Rostova finished her speech, a hush fell over the conclave chamber. The counselors were moved by her words, by her sincerity, by her unwavering belief in the potential for a better future. Even Counselor Xylos seemed to be affected, his expression softening slightly. The Supreme Arbiter rose to his feet, his bioluminescent patterns glowing with newfound hope. "Captain Rostova," he said, "your words have touched us deeply. You have shown us the true potential of humanity. And you have inspired us to believe that we can change, that we can become better." He turned to the assembled counselors. "I propose a vote," he announced. "A vote on whether to accept humanity's offer of friendship and cooperation. A vote on whether to embark on a new course for the Zith Imperium, a course of unity, of understanding, of empathy." The vote was unanimous. The Zith Imperium, after millennia of isolation and arrogance, had finally chosen to embrace humanity. As the news of the alliance spread throughout the galaxy, a wave of hope washed over countless worlds. Species that had once been enemies began to communicate, to trade, to cooperate. New technologies were developed, new discoveries were made, and new frontiers were explored. The galaxy was entering a new era, an era of unity, of prosperity, of peace. But as the celebrations died down, a new and even greater challenge emerged. Deep within the galactic core, an ancient signal was detected, emanating from a region of space that had long been considered uninhabitable. The signal was faint but persistent, and it carried a message of dire warning. The message spoke of a cosmic entity, a being of immense power and malevolence that was slowly awakening from its slumber. The entity was known only as the Voidbringer, and it had the power to consume entire galaxies, to extinguish all life, to plunge the universe into eternal darkness. The Voidbringer had been dormant for billions of years, but its awakening was inevitable. And when it awoke, it would bring with it an apocalypse unlike any the galaxy had ever seen. The Zith and the humans, united in their newfound alliance, knew that they had to act quickly. They had to find a way to stop the Voidbringer before it was too late. They pooled their resources, their knowledge, and their expertise, and they began to develop a plan. They knew that the task before them was daunting, perhaps even impossible. But they also knew that they could not afford to fail. The fate of the galaxy, the fate of the universe, rested on their shoulders. As they prepared for the coming battle, Vorlag and Rostova stood together, gazing out at the stars. They knew that they were facing the greatest challenge of their lives, but they were not afraid. They had each other, they had their allies, and they had the unwavering belief that they could overcome any obstacle. "We can do this," Rostova said, her voice filled with determination. Vorlag nodded in agreement. "Together," he said, "we can save the galaxy." They looked at each other, their eyes filled with hope and resolve. They knew that the road ahead would be long and arduous, but they were ready to face it together. For they were not just Zith and human, they were allies, they were friends, they were guardians of the galaxy. And they would not rest until the Voidbringer was defeated and the universe was safe once more. The truth of mankind, whispered by the general, had not just changed an empire, it had forged an alliance that would stand against the ultimate darkness. The galaxy held its breath, waiting for the dawn.